Welcome, everybody, to Crossing the Line with Greg Heym and Scott Nadler this week.
I'm back.
He's back. Season 2, Episode 7. Those of you keeping track at home.
This is where plot twists start to come.
Yes, this is when there's a deep change in our relationship, and we question whether we should work together or
Characters can get killed off. So
and
this is where it happens.
We're wireless today, so all kinds of... today, by the way, is February 24th, or as it's better known, National Tortilla Chip Day. You know, filming this shortly before lunch, you know, it's going to put ideas in our heads. So how's it been going?
Everything is great. I had a customer appreciation event on Saturday with a Brown Harris Stevens agent. A lot of kids at a pizzeria.
Did you get an invite? Did you get an invite?
It was for customers.
Okay, not buddies? Okay.
We had a magician there. I know we had a whole conversation about magic last time.
The mentalist, did you get
This guy was absolutely amazing. He did this trick where he had a group of us, and he gave us a wallet, an empty wallet. And he said, open the wallet, and there were 6 of us. He took a picture of us. And then we closed the wallet, and I sandwiched the wallet, so it's in between my hands, right. And he has someone else pick out a card. And then he takes that card, and he puts it over my hand, and the card goes away. It disappears. And he says, look in the wallet.
And it's...
So I open the wallet, it's not there. He goes, not that wallet, look at the picture. So he pulled up the picture that he took of us in the beginning where I opened the wallet.
And it's there.
The card was in the picture, in the wallet, in the picture.
See, why can't we have people like that?
Yeah, I know.
Why can't people like that run
absolutely wild. It was my phone. It made no sense. It was absolutely crazy. We were floored.
If somebody can do that, they can fix inflation. Like, why can't we do this?
That's a really good point. We were all like checking our wallets after that. You're like, what? Yeah. Like, what did this guy do? This was, it was absolutely.
You better check your watch and wallet, as they used to say in the old days, because who knows what could be missing. Well, that's pretty cool. Well, you know, I had a gig Friday, worked out well, and
different kind of magic.
Last week, I became assisted living eligible on my birthday. Now I hit a magic milestone of the age where now I can go live in a community somewhere.
Happy birthday.
So I got that going for me.
What'd you do to celebrate?
Me and my son invited his bestie and dad over to watch the Four Nations Face-Off final, which did not go the USA way. But it was a great tournament and a lot of fun.
A lot of fights.
A lot of fights, a lot of injuries.
Yeah.
Serious. McAvoy and Kachuk may be out for the rest of the year, which is not good news for their teams. But next year we have the Olympics. I love international hockey. It's great. There was a lot of passion. You know, it's much better than the all-star events, which I think everybody... The NBA has guys jumping over cars and slam dunking. That's always going to be exciting. But all-star games in general...
But the NBA players aren't even participating in it anymore.
It's like a gimmick thing. They found... Now that you have so many access to so many games, when we were kids in baseball, you only saw American League teams if you were a Yankee fan. There was no interleague play, and you didn't have all these cable channels showing games. So the only time you may have seen some of your favorite players was in all-star games.
Yeah.
And they meant something. Just ask Ray Fosse when Pete Rose basically ended his career by knocking him down at home plate. You know, they mattered. And you watch the 3 fights in 9 seconds in Game 1 between Canada and the U.S., and it's like, this means business. Especially when 2 of them are brothers, you know, they each get into a fight.
Yeah.
Almost 30 years after their father got kicked out of the first 2 games in the inaugural World Cup of hockey. So, go figure.
Let's go back to your birthday for a second.
Yeah.
Are you a cake person? Like what?
I didn't have any cake. I didn't.
Did you blow candles out?
No,
Did
my
you make
wife
a wish?
is in Florida.
Did you get a present?
My wife is in Florida visiting her mother and sisters. So it's just me and my son, which is cool. I've had a week with him, and it's been...
Did he give you a card?
Yeah, I got cards.
Okay.
Nice card. And a funny card. And my wife gave me a card. So
okay. Very nice.
It was nice. I go either way at birthday. Some people love the attention. Some people don't want to even mention it. I'll take any day when someone's going to be nice to me. I don't mind. I'm going to get older anyway. It beats the alternative.
Well, happy birthday.
Well, thank you. And as always, coming to you from Studio 1873, decorated by our friends at the Everset.
This beautiful set here at Studio 1873 is brought to you by the Everset. The Everset provides full-service staging and furniture rental solutions in the New York area. For more information, please visit us at staging.theeverset.com or email us at staging@theeverset.com to request a free proposal.
All right, so we're going to start with housing because we had existing home sales down 4.9% in January. Maybe not a surprise because, rates started rising in October. There was 6%, and then they headed towards 7%. So we knew there was going to be this slowdown.
That time of year also, things tend to slow down a little bit.
Well,
Holiday time.
Should be seasonally adjusted. Maybe
Yes.
you could blame, whether or not yet, because these would have been probably October, November, December shopping,
Right.
Contract signed. But sales were 2% higher than a year ago. It's the fourth straight month of year-over-year gains in sales. Now, that may sound exciting, but remember that last year was the worst year for existing home sales in almost 30 years.
Right.
So if you want to make lemonade out of the lemons, there you go. Median price up 4.8% year-over-year. That's the 19th straight month of year-over-year increases.
Yep.
And inventory up 3.5%. So that's good news. But, the other thing, part of this is now rates have come down for 5 weeks. The problem is they've come down from 7.04 to 6.85, not what we would expect. They're lower than a year ago. Rates was 6.9 versus 6.85, not a major difference. But mortgage applications down in the latest MBA report. What gives? Are you seeing that, or is it just people? It's still expensive. The rates are still too high. What are you feeling out there?
It's funny. We have these conversations and we look at the data, but then as a salesperson, there's my own individual business. Each individual salesperson, and it's such a unique. And this is what happens here. You could have two people sitting downstairs who, have the same job title, who are both real estate agents, and sit right next to each other, and one is beyond busy and is drowning in leads and listings and whatnot, and the other person is twiddling their thumbs and has no business. So, when I look at this, we're very busy right now. I had 3 calls on my walk over here from just the subway to this office. So I think going back to the rates, and we've talked about this, the fact that they've been steady and stable is keeping people in the game.
That's good.
So, again, a couple of years ago, we talked to clients and rates continued to go up. Now it's, if I spoke to someone who was 7 and now it's 6.8, that's a difference.
Yeah.
Psychologically, you're under that 7%. It really makes a difference. So overall, the numbers are not great, but it's someone in my position. You have to work. It's important to get this data out to clients, continue to follow up with people. If I spoke to someone 6 months ago, they should know rates are lower now.
Right. And so we have rates drifting down. Prices are still going up, but the rate of growth has slowed. But, there was an article on CNBC about how that now they have other concerns. Like, it's still expensive. It hasn't, become, it's still higher rates than they want, higher prices than they want. But now they have concerns about the economy. They're hearing about tariffs and what that could mean for inflation. If you're really worried, then now would be a good time to lock in a rate because they would be headed higher. More concerned about layoffs, which is surprising when the unemployment rate is 4%. I know there's a lot of things going on this week. A lot of federal government employees got an email over the weekend that was kind of interesting. I don't know how I would have reacted when I worked for the federal government 30 plus years ago, but it's kind of interesting.
Something tells me you would have a really witty, snarky response. Yeah.
I don't know. I was very young, but so it could have gone either way. But what do you hear a lot of that?
Uncertainty,
Right.
and the Fed mentioned this in their minutes.
Right.
I think whenever there's uncertainty, and you have a government right now that is doing a lot. They're throwing a lot of things against the wall and seeing what's actually going to stick, and then you have the media running with it and talking about it nonstop, and it's everything that we're talking about is all in hypotheticals. So it depends on how people are interpreting that, but they're digesting a lot of information and a lot of data, and naturally everyone is thinking about how does this impact me?
Right.
So I think that uncertainty is is directly correlated to what you're saying here.
But it's funny because tariffs aren't a new phenomenon, right? And the ones with Mexico and Canada are on hold.
But when the president says that it's his favorite word in the English dictionary,
does he walk around all day?
Now people are turned. It's more it's at the top of mind of everyone right now.
Well, obviously, again, people, any new change, whether it's regulatory, when you have a new government in place, there is this, and it does seem to be going at warp speed.
Right.
And, that leads for a lot of commentary on talk shows and a lot of
They can't keep up.
Well, I think sometimes that's the way they want it.
Correct.
So I think that, as we always remind people, talk to the professionals. There are ways to make, you don't like the rate, but there are concessions and other things and other options out there. And this is not a bad time because especially the spring stuff is going to be coming on soon. There's a lot of that leftover product in some markets that there's certainly more negotiability than there's been in a while, about 2 years according to some estimates on a national basis. So with inventory going up, this is a time to make some offers.
And if you have clients over the last couple years who have saved a lot of money, post-pandemic, who have been renting, now they have a lot of money saved, and they're throwing money out the window when it comes to rent. And a lot of the clients that we're talking to right now who are first-time home buyers are saying that. I'm done paying rent. My rent continues to go up. I want to buy something.
And, you want to get a good price, you buy when nobody else is buying.
Exactly.
And where nobody else is buying. And, we've seen in Manhattan a slowdown. A lot of that could be weather-related. I mean, this has been a brutal winter. And, wildfires in California, hurricanes, Boeing strikes. There's been a lot thrown at people, which could be part of this as well. Also concerned about crackdowns on immigration and what that may mean for housing construction going forward. So there is but when have we ever had certainty? Other than the Jets aren't going to win a Super Bowl. The Knicks can't beat Cleveland, OKC, or Boston. We know those are certain.
I think it's just how accessible information is now. And there's a lot of misinformation out there, and everyone all of a sudden is an expert on everything. You can watch one TikTok video, you could see one post on X, and all of a sudden you think you're an expert on, economic policy or Middle Eastern politics.
When you have something, a change in a tax law or regulation or a tariff, it's like, okay, when's the last time that happened? And it's like, oh wait, it hasn't happened before.
Right.
We've never had this set of circumstances. That's something that, irks me because it's always people say like, well, how much is the market down because of this one thing? And it's like, then we have to control for everything else. And it's not so simple to just put numbers on everything. We were talking about the show about things that we don't like, that maybe other people like. And I don't like to slap values on random things.
Yeah.
That's appraisers do that. It's like, oh, it has a terrace, you get that, the kitchen is upgraded. But how much is the threat of tariffs or mass deportations going to affect housing prices? And, you always see, like, according to an analysis by so-and-so, and half the time you can't even find the methodology. So I'm not a big fan of trying to put a value
It's a
on
global economy also, right? Yeah. So was it last week when the Bank of Japan increased their rate? And you started to see that impact our bond market here.
Yeah.
So it really depends on what the market in general decides to focus on, whether it's the Fed, whether it's the stock market, whether it's what's happening geopolitically. There's so many different factors that impact us.
And there was a brutal end to stocks last week, the terrible Friday losses. And then a simple announcement by Apple of a $500 billion investment, and everybody's happy.
Right.
So that's kind of good. Well, all right, so that's kind of the latest on housing. I think the demand is still there. Job growth is still good. We're seeing low rates of unemployment. Stock market has had a great couple of year runs.
Inventory has gone up, but still below pre-pandemic levels, which is supportive of home prices.
Right,
as well.
And like you said, at least rates are not, jumping up and down.
It's not vacillating that quickly.
It kind of feels like, okay, drifting lower is something that is a little more comfortable.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
I used to be that person, and I think a lot of people that get into the mortgage business, the first thing I would do when I would wake up is see if rates are going to be up or if they're going to be down, and that would essentially determine whether or not I was going to have a good day or a bad day. And then you start to, hopefully you have good people around you and they teach you kind of how to stomach that stuff. But last couple of years have been a wild ride, and it feels good that there's some, that rates are finally stable.
Well, when I started writing the blog during the pandemic, we used to throw a lot of, nice stories in there, funny stories, make a lot of fun of the Mets, and so.
Shocking.
But now there's just so much economic stuff coming out every week. It's become more informative, maybe, but not as fun.
Right.
Right. And then you're looking at the data when it comes out, and it's like, oh man, how am I going to explain this? That's another thing. When you get crazy data, like how are we still adding this many jobs?
Right.
How are consumers still spending money? And it's like, why are you looking at me? Oh wait, I'm the guy that's supposed to know that. Anyhow, before we move on to our next segment, we'll tease it. We're going to talk about the Fed, so you may want to fast forward. No, I'm just kidding. We need to take a break for a great message from our sponsors at CrossCountry Mortgage.
Your dream home is closer than you think. I'm Scott Nadler, VP of Mortgage Lending at CrossCountry Mortgage, and I'm here to get you the perfect loan to match your perfect home. From first-time home buyers to seasoned homeowners, I've helped clients make their moves with confidence. Ready for a smooth, stress-free home buying experience? Let's get you moving today. Call me and let's turn those dreams into keys.
Hi, we're Ron and Kara Shovelin, owners of Shovelin Mattress Factory.
For over 50 years, we've crafted 100% USA-made mattresses right behind our showroom. From custom sizes to chiropractor-approved options, we've got your perfect sleep solution. So check out our 5-star reviews or come visit our showroom.
And we're back. All right, so you mentioned the Fed before.
Yeah.
My favorite topic.
Mm-hmm.
They released the minutes of their last meeting in January, which tells us their psyche, what they were arguing about. Basically, worried about tariffs and inflation. They've been talking about that. Regulatory changes, immigration changes. And basically, came to the conclusion that rate cuts are on hold, which should surprise nobody, right?
No, but they also said that they're going to restart the process of reinvesting their bond holdings back into the market, which is going to add liquidity into the bond market, which is going to be favorable to rates as well. So that's something that the bond market actually reacted to. But aside from that, there was really nothing surprising in their minutes, and it was also, what was it? It was 3 weeks ago at this point, or when the minutes came out, it was from a meeting that happened 3 weeks prior.
Right.
And then you had CPI data and different things come out afterwards, but. But if you've seen the Fed comments since then, it doesn't deviate too much from what they said in those minutes.
Well, it's funny the way that they speak in general, this Fed speak that they put in these statements and these press conferences that are just designed to make you clueless about what they're saying half the time.
That's on purpose, probably too.
Yeah, they're basically saying they're trying to convince everybody. Even though it's clear they started cutting rates too soon, and inflation has been moving in the wrong direction in most ways you measure it, it says, but now they have, quote, time to assess the evolving outlook for economic activity, the labor market, and inflation, with the vast majority pointing to a still restrictive policy stance. Now, if you didn't fall asleep by the end of that sentence, it's like, we don't know what we're doing, so we're just going to wait and hope it's okay in the morning. I think we're counting on the Fed to do something to get mortgage rates down, maybe keep the economy supported. It can't do all those things at the same time.
No.
And the rate cuts that we did get last year, which were deep and quick, are now going to start to filter into the economy and maybe even push inflation a bit higher. And that's the thing. We'll get the final word on inflation this Friday when PCE comes out. But it's not moving in the right direction. The housing component is starting to come down a little bit, which is a big chunk of what the CPI, it's usually about half the CPI increase each month. But if you look at the year-over-year changes in prices, there's no category except energy where you see any improvement. and food prices still very high. We keep hearing about eggs all the time. It's tough, and it's really hurting the middle class and below that are spending just more and more of their income on fewer and fewer goods.
Yeah. There was a funny clip online of a guy who was getting his wife a Valentine's Day present. And he said, I want to get her something really expensive. And then he turned and he had a carton of eggs for her.
And God forbid you drop the eggs. Like, you'd be like, oh, no, that's like...
Be an expensive drop.
Especially if you're buying the big ones, you know. I always be careful when I do that stuff.
Yeah, you have to.
It's hard. So let's talk about...
But do you think the Fed's goal of quantitative tightening is starting to subside a little bit now?
Well, I think for them, it was weird to be cutting rates when the economy wasn't in recession or close to it. That's not something you expect unless you think it's imminent, and there was no reason to think that. You know, if we were going to have a recession, we probably would have had it 2 years ago when this started, really started to get bad. But I think that we talked about like the playbook, like what do we do now? And it's like, okay, when was the last time we cut rates by 1% when the economy was growing at like a 2.5% clip and unemployment was 4%? It's like, no, we never did that, Greg. And it's like, all right, let's just figure it out.
So are we calling on the arsonist to put out the fire?
You know, it's funny because that happens when you look at what happened in the financial crisis. We relied on the people that set that system up to fix it, the same two people. And it's like, okay, it was your bill that caused this subprime stuff and alt-A stuff to be sold as if it was, you know, a conventional mortgage and caused the collapse of the mortgage bond market. And your bill is going to fix it. Okay, then why didn't you do that the first time? Right? And they say, it's Monday morning quarterback. That's what we're here to do. Yeah. And with the Fed, this has been obvious from the beginning that they think they can just let this thing work its way out when they should act, and when they should do nothing, they act. It's like they're
very slow to react.
Timing is now they realize what's going on. Mm-hmm. You know, we're talking, if we're really worried about tariffs and policy changes stoking inflation started rising again in most, you know, you saw it in the CPI and the other indexes at the end of last year. So now you're going to add that on top of that, then why are we even saying the words rate cuts? Mm-hmm. It's like saying Beetlejuice 3 times. Like, let's not say it. Right. Because you're going to wind up in a situation where you're not going to be in control, which is what we experienced when we saw, you know, the CPI rising 9% year over year. Right. And I think remember, wages still rising faster than prices. That's going to pull inflation up by itself if that stays that way. And with all the talk of, you know, this fear about government layoffs, we're not going to see any mass layoffs. Most companies reported earnings above forecasts in the
Although Starbucks, I think, just laid off like 1,000 workers.
We hear it all the time, though. Microsoft laying off all these people. Part of that is just business. Well, Starbucks probably doesn't change their business, but, you know, other companies do. Yeah. So it's hard until we start to see. We're still seeing very low jobless claims. Mm-hmm. I don't know. It's hard to see what the next 6 months look like other than a lot of what we've had, where we're going to have a daily uncertainty. One bad report is going to spook the stock market, which is good for bonds typically, or the reverse. And, you know, what is the February jobs report going to show? It was a miserable month for weather, and, you know, who knows what we'll see. So
Not to mention that, what was it, the QCEW report finally came out, and that showed that
it wasn't as bad.
It wasn't as bad, but still 740,000 jobs lost. So what's that? Like 60-ish thousand jobs a month. Well, but it was old news at this point, so it didn't have any reaction.
It was old news, you know, and it's the past. Yeah. You know, the constant revision of data, which I have to do. We all do it. When you get better information, you want the best numbers you can get. It's just, you know, when you live in times that are always changing, it's hard to get your seasonal and other adjustments.
It doesn't move
correct.
The market.
Well, because they take it for what it is.
It's like a media outlet publishing a story that's not true, and then a week later they have The correction? No one cares about the
They
correction.
put the correction like on page whatever, you
Right.
can't see it, but the thing is on the cover.
Right.
All right, we got to take one more break, and then we're going to talk about consumer spending and the economy. It is 70% of GDP, so make sure you come back.
What do you really need to know about buying or selling a home? First, it's serious business. And it's complicated. There's a lot of money on the table, and emotion too. You need an agent who knows the ropes. So, whether you're buying or selling your home, work with professionals who have a mastery of the craft.
And we're back. No more breaks. You got that right? No more breaks. I mean, we'll take a break in here, but not in the video. All right. So consumer spending. We didn't get a chance to talk about retail sales because we were off last week for the holiday. Love filming on Mondays. So retail sales were down almost a full percent in January.
Yeah.
The biggest decline in almost 2 years. You know, bad weather, wildfires might have been a part of it. It's still a bad number. But then, all right. So let's look at the future. You say the past is in the past. Consumers now owe a record $1.21 trillion in credit card debt. Average balance of $65.80. 3.5% more than a year ago.
Yeah.
And the best they could say about that was, well, at least the pace of borrowing is slowing.
Right.
But they're still borrowing money and building up record debt. The SAVE plan now has been blocked, which made student loan payments a lot more affordable. That's going to have to be renegotiated. That's going to impact consumers' ability to buy stuff. And we found out, Moody's Analytics had an analysis that shows that the top 10% of earners now account for 49.7% of all the spending, the highest in records going back to 1989. So what does that tell you, Scott? Now?
We saw since the pandemic, from the stock market to real estate prices, these wealthy people who own a lot of assets, they have appreciated at high clips.
Right.
And when you look at it was interesting. These credit card companies were analyzing where these people are spending their money, and a lot of it was on like foreign goods, going to Paris, going to Italy, shopping. But it's not surprising, but it is the highest number on record right now.
And that's, the baby boomers, we've been saying, have been keeping us out of recession because they have the cash to spend. And they're getting nice returns on their stocks. And they don't need to buy a home. So they have money, and they're certainly out there, and the economy needs it.
And some of these people have incomes that have stagnated or have even dropped, but because of their assets, which have appreciated, they're able to spend.
Well, I'm sure they can appreciate their assets. It's great.
For student loans, I will say, because we work with a lot of clients who have student loans,
Right.
It's important for them to know that if they can stretch their payments out, that will lower their payment, which can make it more affordable for them to qualify for a loan. So yes, the SAVE plan's going away, but they can still refinance and restructure their loans with whoever their servicer is. And that's something we do work with a lot of clients who have student loan payments because it can really hinder their ability.
Yeah, especially with
qualify.
college costs these days.
Exactly. But I mean, we're looking at so much data right now, and it's depending upon what the market decides to focus on is like that's the flavor of the week, and everyone decides, maybe it's whatever the Fed is doing is really important, or whatever happens in the labor market is very important. And as I was on my way over here, I was just thinking, what are things that are universally loved or accepted that you don't like? That like you're in the minority on. Like so if your son, for example, is into Grand Theft Auto and he has all these classmates that are all playing Grand Theft Auto, but there's one kid who says, you know what, Grand Theft Auto is terrible. He's the outlier, right? Everyone he's an alien in that group because they're obsessed with Grand Theft Auto. What's something in your life that you're like, you know what, everyone loves this, but it's not for me.
I think it has changed over the years because things have changed. Like, I have no interest in award shows. Like, I don't go to many movies. I don't buy new albums. So I could care less who's winning Emmys, Grammys, Tonys, Oscars.
The ratings might show that, though.
Well, no, I think part of it has changed. Obviously, everything's streaming now, and it's just a matter. So I would say that to a certain degree. I don't watch as much TV. If I'm watching TV, it's sporting events or documentaries. I'm not really. It's just the other thing is I'm not streaming crazy. Like everyone's like, do you watch this show on this? Have you watched? You can't even keep track, so you just give up.
Yeah.
Maybe that's now because I'm another year older that I'm that way. So what's your beef with America?
Golf.
Golf.
I am not playing golf. Okay. I think when I talk to, and I have friends that are obsessed with golf, and again, I understand I'm in the minority here.
I don't know about that. I mean, Ray, you play golf?
No.
Lena?
No.
See? We're 100% golf free in this room. There you go. It's a golf free zone for you, Scott.
But there are people who are, I mean, most of my friends are obsessed with golf and they go on trips. And when I talk to them and say, what do you love about it? It's, being outside, being in the golf cart.
Drinking.
Yeah. It's like nothing to do with the actual sport of playing golf. And it's a schlep, it's expensive, it's not for me.
I used to do it.
I know.
Back in the day, it was a 9-hole course by my first apartment was. And the problem is, it's something you can go out there where people can't get you. Although probably everybody's carrying a cell phone now, but it's also the most single frustrating thing because for every one drive you may hit that goes right down the fairway, there's 7 others after it.
People are miserable. People are very frustrated when they play. And also, I was told when I was in my 20s, you need to play because it's good for business. Yeah. I'm like, I've never seen Warren Buffett swing a golf club before. Like, it's good for business because it's relationship building. But you could get a pedicure with someone and develop a relationship with them. You can get a meal. You can do anything.
And another thing that I'm not embracing that this country is been shoving down my throat my whole life is soccer. It's not a sport I find interesting. It was big in the 70s. You had the Cosmos, you had the Arrows indoor soccer in the same period. We've been forcing this on this country and trying to get excited. We're not good at it. And the women's team does a lot better than the men's team.
When you travel abroad and you see the college football-esque atmosphere at these games,
it's crazy.
You do get it, but it just doesn't translate here.
I think as Americans, we like a little bit of violence in our games. Maybe it's our nature. Or we just have enough sports already.
Yeah.
We don't have room for another one. And it just gets hyped and hyped every year more and more. And, it just doesn't do anything. So many of the games go to shootouts. They fake more injuries than Russian hockey players do. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
They act like they're dead, and then right when they get carried off the field, they come running back on. Nobody knows how much time is left, and they wonder why referees got to worry about their lives, because they're the only ones. They put random time, extra time back, 5 minutes, 2, whatever it is, and if they don't like it, they could get shot on the way out. I don't buy it. You can try to shove that down my throat. It hasn't worked.
It's not for you.
No, it's just I like my favorite sports to watch are hockey and football.
We also have a lot of options here. You have a lot of professional sports here and great sports that you're into.
And I know it's a sport that doesn't require a lot of equipment. You can play it anywhere. That's great. If exercise, we need everything we can get. My son tried soccer. He didn't care for it.
Yeah.
Which is good because the amount of yelling that can go on a soccer field when actually not much is happening on the field is pretty scary.
Right. Plus, you got to stand outside in the cold and watch them
I went for a walk with my
hour.
son yesterday. Yesterday was okay, but it was still like, with the wind chill, like 30 degrees. And these little kids are running around in shorts.
Yeah.
Now, maybe they're not cold, but their parents, I'm sure, are freezing.
It'd be great if I asked, what's something that everyone hates that you love? And Greg was like, O.J. Simpson wasn't that bad. Like there's really, show me the evidence.
I can think of a couple things that maybe I don't want to get into on this podcast right now, but I think it's become so hard to keep up with a lot of things because there's so much information. I always wonder why my dad didn't watch a lot of sports as he got older, because he just didn't have the time when he's working multiple jobs and doing stuff. And my son gets on me because if I don't know who a player is in a basketball game or a hockey game, if I don't know, I was like, I got a job, Gregory. Like, I got numbers in my head.
I was with a friend recently, and he asked me if I listened to a certain podcast. It's like, how many podcasts are out there? How many newsletters?
There's only one podcast out there, and it's Crossing the Line. That's it. This is the only one you need. Why
and
go
that was my
anywhere else?
response to him. Exactly. Yeah.
It's this one. It becomes intimidating. People, which one do I pick? And
The
then you don't
newsletters,
know.
the podcast, the shows.
No, you got the line, the blog, and then you have Crossing the Line, the podcast, and then there is nothing else.
That's it. Yeah.
It's just all you need.
Yeah,
there's
I agree.
There's other good shows, but it is hard. The more choices, and I grew up in an era where there were 3 TV channels, 3 networks. That was it. And there wasn't any choice, and some way that was simpler and happier.
Yeah.
And even with social media, you look at kids have all this access to information. Does it make them happier? My son admits that it doesn't. And why are you looking at it? And he's like, what else am I going to do? It's like, how about anything else?
Well, in the old age home that you're going to be moving into, are they going to have more than 3 channels there? Or
there's the channel that shows Blue Bloods all the time, probably, because that's. And then for the oldies channel, it shows Matlock, Murder, She Wrote, like that stuff. I don't know. I have a good friend who lives in a Margaritaville in Daytona Beach, and all they do is party all the time because it's Margaritaville, right? I don't know that life's for me. I don't know what my retirement looks like. Mm-hmm. Fortunately, I'm not in a position to just say that's it, unless the show really takes off, and then then maybe. But it's hard. There's a lot of things happening now. My son's getting ready to go to college. And that's going to change the dynamic of not having him around, which is going to be interesting after 17 years of having him.
Yeah.
So, and we'll have his announcement once he commits. He's going to be very close.
Right here on
right
the show.
Here, so if I can't drag him in, I'll have to do the reveal. Because I don't want to come in and do that. I'm like, okay, fine. Nice. He used to love to come into work when he was little, which seemed to be last week, but it was actually, 10 years ago.
They grow up so fast, Greg.
And they as soon as they get taller than you, the whole dynamic changes. And now that he goes to the gym way too often, I got to keep that in the back of my mind.
Because he could beat you in a fight? Is that?
Well, I'm a decrepit old man now. It doesn't matter. I don't. No, I think it's. You look at him differently.
Yeah.
Because instead of looking down at him, now you're looking up at him.
You can still take him.
I'd have to surprise him a little bit. I still got a lot of weight on him, so that's important. Although he's eating ungodly amounts of food.
He's 17.
I
should.
I keep telling him, you just enjoy it as long as it lasts. Well, on that irreverent note, it was fun. It's great to have you back.
It's good to be back.
And we want to thank Ray and Lena as always. We want to thank CrossCountry Mortgage, the Everset, and most notably our viewers and listeners. We really appreciate the support that we get and we continue to get. And again, any comments, ctl@bhsusa.com. We'll have a good show next week. We'll have the latest on inflation and spending. And then after that, we'll get the jobs report the following week. And who knows what's going to happen also. But we will have no soccer on this show. That much I can tell you for sure. But still, have a great week, everybody. The weather's getting nicer, so let's enjoy that.